Oh, good day, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the second webinar in our series organized by Tara Ikram. A warm welcome to our panelists and attendees for this webinar, which is on Earthen architecture for and by communities. As I said earlier, this is organized by Tara Ikram, and we've enjoyed the support of ICOM office in Sharjah. I'm pleased to introduce myself. I'm Olufemi Adetunji, a cultural heritage researcher. I also serve as the coordinator for the Tara Ikram network with Karima, who is joining us today on the panel as a participant. So for those who are joining us for the first time, ICOM is the International Center for the Study of Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property, and is an international organization working in service to its 137 member states all around the world for promotion and conservation of all forms of cultural heritage in every region of the world. Before I proceed further, may I appraise you for some procedures, mainly for housekeeping purposes, for this webinar. You can send your queries and comments via the question and answer icon just below your screen. You see it at the bottom of the Zoom window. We'll also take some questions after the presentation of our panelists. We're happy to have three important panelists today, and we'll be happy to listen to them when the time comes. In case we are unable to answer all the questions due to shortage of time, please do send us your question via our email. That is Tara Ikram. I'll spell it out: TERRAICCROM @gmail.com. I will also put that on the chat box for everyone to see it, and we'll surely get back to you via email. Thank you very much. We'll call on Zaki to come on board. Hello, Zaki.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can on your video now.
I'm
Awesome.
so sorry. I lost the icon of Zoom, so I'm trying to share my presentation. Good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to be with you today, and I will be very happy to share with you the second to welcome everyone to the second webinar today on the title of Earthen Architecture for and by Communities. It's a pleasure to have this network who took part in Terra 2022 World Congress on Earthen Architectural Heritage in Santa Fe to come together, and it's very really enchanting to have the people working together to bring this webinar into action and share experiences among the network from the Arab region, from Africa, and also from Asia. So we look forward to hearing from all these people in the coming months. And today we have two of the colleagues who took part in this conference who will be speaking to us today. We also have Dr. Hussam Mahdi, who is going to comment on our work and experiences from a regional perspective. And I hope you will be enjoying the seminar. So after the Terra 2022 conference, we had talked about ICRAM's involvement in the past and how ICRAM was involved in several courses in the late 80s and early 90s. And these were actually some images that we presented also at Terra 22. We had also posters presented at that time. And this network is actually becoming quite active after its visit to different sites also, and sharing experiences in training workshops that they took part in Santa Fe. These were also some courses that we did previously on material science and material conservation, as well as regional courses we held in different parts of the Arab region, working in the UAE, in Jordan, and in many other places. We had also the project that we led for about 2 years and a half in Sudan, which involved earthen architecture. And I think the experiences we have had as ICRAM, we can build on for future regional perspectives and how we deal with such vernacular heritage for the future. So these are a few images from this Sudan project, which we held. And I have to mention to you all who are interested, on the 8th of December, we will be having a workshop with streamlining on this particular projects, and these are now announced on social media and on ICRAM website. Also, we have the master degree program, which addresses several of the aspects that we have been discussing also on conservation of built heritage. For those who are interested, they can also look at our educational programs, including the master's program that we have with the University of Sharjah. On the educational level, we have tried also to work on higher educational strategy, how we can embed the philosophies and theories of conservation from a regional perspective. This is something that I will leave today Dr. Hussam Mahdi to talk about, but I think it is really important to look at this from an experience that we have shared also with our regional partners. I wanted just to highlight two articles that I came across in the past 2 weeks between the two webinars. And one on the right is an article which I think would be useful for you all to look at, relating the material of earth and mud bricks to sustainable conservation, and how these are important for city development and work that you might be all engaged in the region. On the left-hand side, actually, is an article that has been recently published on methods and techniques by which, in the middle of the desert, they have also managed here to use the thermal capacity of the material to not only to provide mild summers in the warm weather, but also to save cold materials. So these Iranian and Persian techniques were linked to the Qanat, and they actually were kind of refrigerators, if you want, where ice was stored in the middle of the desert. So these are quite interesting articles. I just wanted to mention for those who are interested. The Arab Forum for Cultural Heritage also addresses all the issues we have been addressing here from ICRAM Sharjah, especially in relation to questions like basic questions of why conserving such cultural heritage, and to whom, and also looking at the various perspectives from not only conservators, but also from people who worked on the conservation theory, including thinkers and writers and people who are working in the fields of arts in the region. So I wish those who are speaking today every luck in their presentations, and I'd like just to have said these words to welcome you all to this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zaki. I would like to welcome our first presenter today, that is Earthen. Earthen, you can on your video as I'm introducing you. Earthen is joining us from Jordan, and she'll be presenting today on historical Islamic architecture in northwestern Jordan, heritage mosque in Erbil Governorate. Pardon me if I didn't pronounce that very well. Dotam is trained as an architect and a conservator. She completed a master's degree in architectural conservation from German Jordan University and a bachelor degree in architectural engineering from University of Jordan. Her interest lies in art and design, which has guided her in her study of architecture. She also engaged in other aspects beside art and architecture, which is heritage and conservation. And today, she ended up participating in different related workshops in heritage fields and excavation. And she is also part of the sustainable cultural heritage through the engagement of local community. This is a project that is being implemented by Friends of Archaeology and Heritage in Jordan. We are happy to welcome Earthen today, and she will have the floor for our presentation. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I will start with the title Earthen Architecture for and by Communities, Historical Islamic Architecture in Northwestern Jordan, Heritage Mosque in Erbil Governorate, Earth as a Building Material. I will show two main cases, the case of Kharja Mosque in Erbil and the case of Sheikh Khalil Mosque. This is my short bio, as mentioned. I will start with a statement by Hassan Fathi. Build your architecture from what's beneath your feet. Introduction, I will go quickly. Earth as a building material. Earth has been the most common and obtainable material to human. This material has caught human attention since day one. And this material that considers closed mat is easily shaped to meet all of his life needs, shelter being the first one. Earthen architecture.
Sorry, Earthen, sorry for interrupting. You might need to share your PowerPoint from your hand.
What?
You might need to share your PowerPoint from your hand.
Your PowerPoint, Dua, is not showing the screen.
Not showing what?
Your PowerPoint is not showing.
Why? I share it. I make.
Could you try again?
Like this? Do you see my screen now?
No, you've not shared your screen.
Now?
Yeah, it's coming up now. Thank you.
Okay, I will make it full. Sorry. This is the first slide. Okay, now?
Yeah, that's fine now.
Okay, so I will begin again. Earthen architecture for, by, and by communities. Historical Islamic architecture in Northwestern Jordan, Heritage Mosque in Erbil Governorate. I will show two main cases, the case of Kharja Mosque and the case of Sheikh Khalil Mosque in Erbil Governorate. This is a statement by Hassan Fathi, build your architecture from what's beneath your feet. I said before the introduction. Applications of earthen architecture in Jordan. Unfortunately, in Jordan, there are few examples of earthen architecture and using earth as a basic building material, but there are several other examples under the term of vernacular architecture or village architecture, as mentioned on in the book of the architect Ammar Khammash, Notes on Village Architecture in Jordan. And he mentioned that village architecture in Jordan serves as a witness to an ancient culture which adapted to a harsh arid environment and produced an architecture in the simplicity of form with an inspired dedication to function. Since this series is titled under the title of Earthen Architecture for and by Communities, this presentation shows community applications of different earthen uses and techniques in Jordan by two main cases of heritage mosque located in northwestern Jordan in Erbet Governorate, the case of Kharja Mosque and the case of Sheikh Khalil Mosque. Here we have the cover book of the catalog or a gazetteer, students' gazetteer named by Islamic Heritage Sites in Jordan, prepared by the MA students of the JGU in Architectural Conservation Academic year 2017 and 19, edited by Ammar Khamash and Thomas Weber. And I worked in the section related to Erbet Governorate, the catalog of Erbet Governorate, including the heritage mosque there. I will show you the pages of the two cases from the catalog of Erbet. Here we can see the case of Kharja Mosque and the different categories related to this monuments, started by the name, the GIS coordinates, description of the plan, measurements, building material, and other main categories related to this special monument. Ending up by sketches and different photos for the details, elevation, sections, and other technique details, and using the natural materials in the monument. This mosque has faced many climate changes and geographical factors, but this historical Islamic monument has been rebuilt and restored to revive its brilliance, and it was in the past the local communities in Kharja village whom were responsible for the conservation and restoration process by themselves through establishing a committee by locals, experts, and volunteers in order to preserve it and restore it. The cost of the conservation and the preservation process was by a donation from one of the local in the village called Sultan Ibrahim al-Zabi. And Dr. Ahmed al-Zabi was the main supervisor of the committee. The building built on the ruins of many monuments through different historical eras of trimmed stone, mud, and reeds in the form of contracts. And you can see this photo, interior photo. You can see how natural roof structure, the conservation of this ceiling was by removing the old reeds from the roof of the old mosque and replacing with almost 10,000 new reeds, while the wood of the roof was preserved to ensure its reconstruction in a way that preserves the historical character of the old mosque. Here we can see the original technique of preservation in the roof or the ceiling. I will not go in details by the different categories, including inside the catalog, but it's mainly to mention the original name of the mosque, like in this case, Masjid Kharj al-Qadim, the GIS coordinates, the location coordinates in Jordan, and the description about the plan, which mainly broad rectangular. You can see here the sketch plan of the mosque. The measurement occupied 162 meters square, and the building materials was dressed limestone of irregular block sizes. And in this photo, you can see the natural basalt stone inserted in the elevation of Kharja Mosque, and it acts like a stair. You can get up to the roof or the ceiling by using these natural basalt stones. And the transversal arches of carefully cut limestone, and the roof mosque built by reeds and wooden beams. You will see here a different, another photo for the ceiling, the wooden beams, and the conservation of the reeds. Here you can see the detailed sketches for the section and the elevation. A traditional roofing with peeled wooden beams and cane on the right of the screen. And here an interior view for the mosque. The second case is the case of Sheikh Khalil Mosque, which is in Turra, and these are the pages related from the catalog of Erbet Governorate. The name, also the GIS coordinates, the plan, building material, and other categories, ending up by the photos and the sketches. We can see that Sheikh Khalil Mosque is a small ancient mosque in Turra, northern Jordan, and located to the west of the ancient Umari Mosque, which is a big mosque, at the distance about 1 kilometer. And it's believed that the mosque also is much older than that. The mosque was named after a Sufi man named Sheikh Khalil al-Rifa'i from Syria. And the mosque, unfortunately, was demolished as a result of a rainstorm in 2019. This is really sad. And here we can see the exterior review after the demolition. Here, I will show you different pictures for the mosque to understand the original technique for ordering the natural basalt stones. Here, a description of the plan, measurements. The building materials, you can see the exterior review was basalt, roughly blocks incorporating with older spoilers. In the interior, there was a Roman inscription, a Greek one, and a calligraphic one inside the mosque. And we can see the natural building techniques used in this case. Here we can see the cross vaults rest from the inside. This is a view from the inside. And here the photos of the calligraphic inscription and the Greek one. This is a section sketch and exterior view. You can see how beautiful the order of such a monument. Unfortunately, this is the collapse of the photo of the collapse of West Wall in winter 2019. And the Jordanian authorities decided to remove the entire building. Since 20 years ago, or more than that, the preservation of this monument was for and by the locals. It was intact, but not used as a mosque. There was a lack of funding, economical issues prevent to use it again as a mosque. But it was preserved by the local communities. Here we can see different photos of the mosque, the exterior view, the south wall and northward wall of the mosque, exterior view by the locals, detailed for the dome, and the east elevation. Here we can see another photos, exterior views after the demolition by Nida El-Khazali and Mr. Nader Atiyah. I will show you, if there's time, other examples of earthen architecture in Jordan. Modern example, like this school in El Jafar. You can see the exterior view of this school, which is built from earth brick top with 8 earth domes. And it was built from earth, including domes. No woods or tree branches has been used architecturally. In Jordan, these domes have appeared in the area of the Jordan Valley, including North Shuna or Safi, in addition to Jafr al-Darawish and Jafr al-Zamankon. Here we can see another example of Qusayr al-Jawarse, and you can see the exterior view of it. It's a community center led by a group of local ladies located in the South Shuna near the Dead Sea in Jordan. And it's a public facility open to the local community where educational and vocational programs are provided. Here we can see another exterior view during the construction. And you can see that the thick walls have high insulation efficiency. Another photos of the exterior view of Qasr al-Jawarsi during the construction. Using a passive solar system, using solar energy makes a comfortable environment inside the building, cool in summer and warm in winter. Another modern example of earthen architecture in Jordan, Finan Eco Lodge by Ammar Khammash, sits on the lower entrance of the Dana reserves in Wadi Araba. Here an exterior view of Finan Eco Lodge and how It's present like the architecture of the exterior extend to the interior, creating a vivid coherence between the outside narrative and the inside. Another photo from the inside, interior view of Finan Iqalad. A sketch by Ammar Khammash. Since most of the heat escaped through the roof, it was the biggest climate control change. To overcome heat loss, roofs were made from 2 layers of ferrocement sandwiching straw bales in between to ensure a low thermal bridging. The references, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Jordan, for that wonderful presentation on different cases of Earthen architecture.
I finished on time.
Yeah, you try with the time. Interesting.
I try to finish quickly because I have different case studies.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate your presentation. And I would like to welcome Tiani. Tiani, you can on your video now. Tiani is our second presenter for today. She's a PhD candidate in architectural heritage at the University of Salah, Algeria, where she obtained a master's degree in urban design. Our current research is on identification and enhancement of Earthen know-how in the southwestern region of Algeria, also in collaboration with Kyoto Seika University in Japan. She's also identifying and documenting construction know-how of Earthen architecture in southwestern Africa. She is a member of ICOMOS International, as well as ICOMOS Ischia, and as well as the Life Beyond Tourism movement in Italy. Our presentation today will be focusing on Earthen architecture in Algeria, Earthen constructive know-how in the Xil of the Sahara region. Warm welcome to you, Tiani. You have the floor now.
Thank you so much, Anthony. So from Jordan, we will travel to Africa and more precisely to Algeria. So this presentation is a part of a PhD research project on Earthen constructive know-how in the Qusur of Algeria, more precisely in the Sahara region. More precisely in the Sahara region, which is a desertic area in northwest of Algeria, and it shares borders with Morocco. So this research, therefore, took as case study a series of qusur along the Sahara River, from which the region took its name. So it comes Qsar Mughal, Qsar Knatsa, Qsar Beni Abbas, and Qsar Tarit. So first of all, I would like to explain what is qasr, which is in plural qusur. So in North Africa, usually the word qasr or qusur is refers to a fortified oasis village built of earth and or stone, and it's often the results of a thoughtful urbanization process leading to towns whose shapes depends on the configuration of the sites. Usually it's limited by palm grove and relief. Sometimes it's plain or dune or river also, as we see here in the image. So the mosque or the jama is a fundamental element in the urban configuration of the Qasr. It represents a high religious and decision-making place and is marked by a minaret, as we are seeing here in the pictures. And this minaret is dominating the whole Qasr and serves as a repair and a spiritual reminder. And also in the past, it was like a landmark for the road caravans. So the entrance are linked to a central square where the inhabitants used to meet and organize their different meeting or festivals. The urban fabric of the Qasr is organized by a network of hierarchical alleys. So we call them darb, then zqaq and ribet. In the local language of the like local dialect of the Saura, it goes from the private side to from the public spaces to private spaces. Some passages are covered, as we are seeing here in the pictures, providing a dark and a cool atmosphere, and sometimes they are pierced with small skylights to provide light. Unfortunately, today, this ingenious heritage is in danger. Beside the natural effects of climate change, so we have a lot of inundation in the area, and also the sign wind, human factors, and the ignorance of governments and communities about the importance of conserving this heritage are the main reasons for this unfortunate situations. So today, beside a real will to proceed with a rehabilitation operation, we notice that the earthen constructive know-how is poorly documented, with a loss of traditional constructive culture and a break in the transmission of earthen constructive know-how. So which makes rehabilitation so difficult and sexful, as is shown in these pictures. A lot of operation of rehabilitation was made in the region, but they used like concrete and sometimes different materials because they ignore how to use and how to rehabilitate with earth material. So on the basis of this statement, our research consists in identifying and documenting the constructive know-how that still persists in this region. On the first side, because from these sources, it would be possible to identify, recognize, and understand the traditional constructive know-how, and also to constitute a platform of fundamental knowledge to better preserve and enhance this vernacular earthen architecture. On the other side, to provide a reference and a useful support for the construction of a new earthen architecture more adapted to the context of the region. So when we started our research and we went to the sites, most of documents we found on urban and architectural scale, and which we wanted to use as a support for our research, were not updated or digitized, and were sometimes presented in without legends or orientation, without names, so which required an additional effort and extra work of updating and checking on the sites. This was very difficult because we didn't work in team, and we didn't have the adequate equipment and material on the site. So we did it on the traditional way. We updated the urban plan of the 4 Qasr. Here we are showing Qasr Mughal and Qasr Knata. We did the same things with the alleys and the urban places. All the details on the urban scale for the 4 Qasrs, the same for the 2 others. Then we have moved to the architectural scale, and we updated the plan of the few houses that still remains in the regions. We did elevations and the plan and sometimes we explain the different spaces and their rules. The same thing for the mosques. We try to update their plans, elevations, and for the mosques of each Qasr. Then we have created tables for for each details, constructive detail in each ksar. So for example, here we have a table for the walls. We have grouped them by building material. Sometimes it's earth. They are made with adobe, or what we call طوب in Arabic. And also we group them by the wall assembly and the type of the adobe and the type and dimension of adobe used in each region. We did the same thing for the floor. We also grouped them by the material used. Like here we have the wood of palm grove, or sometimes a wood of trees. A different type of trees, a different type of decoration. The same thing with the beam and columns, and with the same thing for the stairs. We divided them by the material used. Sometimes it's stone or adobe. Urban stairs or interior stairs in the houses. Same thing for the windows and the door. So at the end, we produced it as no, I forget here. Like this is the arch, and so the types of the arch that exist in the region. So at the end of our surveys, we produced a kind of a catalog of the 4 ksur for the urban and architectural scale, and always for the constructive technique used. However, we found that constructive know-how is not limited to material aspects, such as the set of building materials and technique used, but it also includes an important immaterial aspect, which consists of gesture, representation, and therefore community culture, as well as the capacity for adaptation and innovation that characterize the workforce. So in reality, that's what forged the professional identity of master masons. So in order to understand the constructive know-how its heritage in its 2 dimensions, material and immaterial, we first looked for master masons or persons able to explain and demonstrate to us traditional constructive process in the region. So we made the turn of the culture directorate, the craft and trade chamber, and the various ksur in the region to guide us toward qualified masons. So at the end, we made a list of the name of some masons that their name was given to us. But contrary to what was accepted when we tried to verify it on the sites, the holders of these skills are so rare in the region. Most of the persons that exist in our list passed away, and even those who still alive and who possess this knowledge and know-how of they found themselves devaluated by the government, and they prefer to practice other trade. So all the time they answering that it's more profitable to do another work than to work on earth. So faced with this lake of skilled masons in this region, we opted for another approach to complete our investigation. So we were inspired by the itinerary of the caravan roads, which were axes of exchange and transmission of know-how and trade, and also of movement of master masons and other craftsmen. So we traveled to 2 regions bordering the Sahara. We are talking here about the Gurera region in Algeria and Drat in Morocco. In Morocco, to look for qualified masons that can help us to understand the process of earthen constructive know-how that of the details that we collected. But the choice also was made and influenced by the existence of 2 centers for the preservation of earthen architecture and local constructive know-how. We are talking about Kapter in Gurera in Algeria, and Sirkas in Morocco. So in this region, we worked with skilled masons on rehabilitation projects, or even we showed them the catalog that we made in our in the Saura region. And together we worked on some prototype in order to understand the process of their realization. We first learned how to choose the right type of earth for the construction by doing some simple text on the site. We also learned how to make adobe or top. And then we made prototypes with the master masons for each detail collected on the Saura. For example, here we try to make a prototype of the wall. Then after making the prototype, we created a sort of a manual of earthen constructive know-how of the Qusur of the Saura with technical drawing and text explaining the process of their implementations. Sorry. So as you are seeing here, this is the example of the walls. We make the prototype and then we try to make the texts that explain the process with a technical drawing. We did the same thing for the beam and the columns, for the floor, all the types of the floor, and also for the stairs, for the doors and windows, and the small details, for the arch, and also for the decorated surfaces. This is it. I will stop here because we are on the time. And thank you. I'd like to end with these pictures because it gives hope. It's in a workshop organized by Capter in Gurera. They try to sensibilize small children about earthen architecture. So like this, they will grow up by recognizing their heritage, and especially they recognizing the value of earthen material. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tianet, for that wonderful presentation and quite interesting to listen to. I would like to remind all participants that feel free to drop your questions on the question and answer box, and we'll be happy to harvest as much as possible questions that we get today. We're already getting some in our emails, and we'll be calling out and providing response to those questions at the right time. We're happy today to have on the panel an expert. He is Ocean Madi. Ocean Madi, you can on your video now. He's an Egyptian and British independent consultant and researcher on the conservation of built heritage. He's based in Oxford, UK, with more than 30 years experience. He earned his PhD from Glasgow University, master's from Raymond Lemel International Center for Conservation in Leuven, and his bachelor from Sham University in Cairo. He's the president of ICOMOS International Scientific Committee of Vernacular Architecture, SIAV, and a member of the board of trustees for the Paul Oliver Vernacular Architecture Library. Ocean is the author of Glossary of Arabic Terms for the Conservation of Cultural Heritage and Approaches to the Conservation of Islamic Cities, the Case of Cairo. He has published both with ICROM. We're happy to have you today and to share from your experience, Madi.
Thank you very much, Olufemi, and thanks for Dua and Tinhinel. It's really very interesting presentations. So I would like first to talk a few words about ICOMOS. As Olufemi said, I am the president of SIAV, the International Scientific Committee on Vernacular Architecture. It is one of 30 scientific international committees of ICOMOS. There is one of them which is on earthen buildings, for which Tinhinan is a member, and ICOMOS is an advisory body to UNESCO on cultural heritage, together with ICROM. Whereas IUCN is the advisory body for natural heritage. Also, ICOMOS and ICROM have many collaboration projects and initiatives on the conservation of cultural heritage all over the world. Yes, although my main interest is really vernacular architecture, but vernacular architecture, so much of it is earthen architecture. And even when it is not, then earth is still involved, such as some of the examples that Dua showed us. May have involved building with stone, but usually the mortar is with earth. And very often earthen architecture is really, as Tenhinan said, very often underestimated by professionals, by governments, by laws. And maybe when we talk about the heritage, the built heritage outside the West, then we are we very often face some issues of difference in views, because most of earthen built heritage is living heritage, and which means that it means a lot to the communities, and very often it is kept by the communities. And you know, for example, the two mosques that Dua mentioned are you know, they mean a lot to their communities. And very often when a building is a living building, usually the you know, the conservation of it needs to take into account its livelihood, which may sometimes be more important or as important as the fabric itself. And this is where the NARA document on authenticity really you know, made this major change, and this or major kind of development in the theory and the practice of conservation worldwide, where before it was there was so much concentration on the monumental heritage and on the authenticity of the fabric. With the NARA document on authenticity, it became more acceptable that actually you may have a fabric that had been renewed so many times, but there is authenticity still. There is authenticity maybe in the design, maybe in the craftsmanship, in the function, and so on. So it is really very important when we deal with earthen buildings, with the earthen built heritage, to consider this issue, to consider communities. And that's wonderful that it's this webinar is really focusing on that. And we can see that from the two beautiful presentations that were given, you know, with the presentation of Dua, where you know, she mentioned that the two mosques of Al Kharja and Sheikh Khalil, you have really you know, these the community is so important. And actually, Dua used in her presentation words that in other types of heritage could be bad words, like rebuilt and reconstructed.
Yeah, I know that, because the local was the main aspect in these processes. So they were not aware about the process of the conservation. They are not experts. They
yes.
Rebuilding, really, rebuilding and reconstruction, because they do not have the exact experience like the expert, but they try their best to let these monuments alive.
Yes, I fully understand.
We cannot see these monuments in Irbid. The locals was the first element in these monuments. That's why I use rebuild and reconstruction and restoring, because they use their experience.
Yes, and I agree with you, and this is what I was trying to. That was the point that I was trying to make, is that in the case of earthen buildings, particularly living heritage, where there is a mosque people pray in and they care for, and it symbolizes an important Sufi sheikh or important history and collective memory for the local community. It is not really about the material itself and how old and authentic it is, as much as the meaning and the function and the place, the significance of the building symbolically and spiritually for the for the community. And that's where I think the development, of the theory of heritage conservation developed, because in the past we were talking only about monuments and sites, and now we are talking about places of cultural significance, as Bora Charter identifies it. And so it's and also it's important to see, as Tinhinen said, about the raising awareness of the confidence in earth as an important and very good material and technique of construction that is actually developed through centuries of wisdom of the local communities. And this wisdom is actually could be lost when the significance, when the importance of earth as a building material is undermined. So it is very often assumed that reinforced concrete is stronger, or steel, or whatever. But actually, we have, for example, in Yemen, what we call Manhattan of the South, where we have skyscrapers built of mud that are centuries old, and they're still there. And there is torrential rain. I mean, the rain season there is huge, and so it's very tough. Yet these buildings are standing for centuries. So we know that if an earthen building is built properly, with good details, technical details, then it can last for centuries. And it can be multi-stories as the buildings in Yemen. It can be very big as the buildings in, like, for example, the Great Mosque in Jenne in Mali. And really, it's the earth as a building material is perhaps the most used around the world, and probably the oldest. I mean, we have earthen buildings in archaeological sites going back as 8,000 years ago, in Turkey, in Syria, in Iraq, in Egypt, in many places. We still have earthen buildings standing for all these thousands of years. So we know that actually, if it is built properly and maintained properly, it can be, very resilient. And of course, now with our focus on sustainable development goals, we need really to think very carefully about the environment. As Dua quoted Hassan Fathi, you build from what is underneath your feet. And he said that in the 1940s. And this wisdom is now, we are learning it the hard way with the climate change, but also even with the pandemic, when we were not able for almost a couple of years to go anywhere, or to travel, or to import and export building materials. We needed to live and build and maintain and do everything locally. So this is really the wisdom of centuries of local communities. And I think for the for the Arab region, but also for Africa and Asia and even Latin America, I mean, like outside the West, we have this. I would consider it a colonial legacy, where we don't really have enough. Interest or not interest, but enough. We don't listen enough to the communities. Maybe the legal systems, the institutional structures, and so on are not really appreciating the local communities' wisdom and interests enough, as Tenhinen said about the Qusur of Algeria, and how so much is lost, to the point that master builders, who are in themselves are heritage, actually are living heritage, are actually forced to practice something else, because there is no enough appreciation for them to carry on, to continue their craft, their master craft. And I think this we need really to pay more attention about the communities. We need to also pay more attention about the local culture, the wisdom of the communities. And I remember seeing a documentary, an interview with the Imam of the Grand Mosque of Jenne in Mali. It's the biggest, I think it's claimed to be the biggest mud building in the world, and it is a World Heritage Site. And the presenter asked the Imam, he said to him, every year before the rain season, the whole community come together to maintain, and repair the mosque before the rain season. Why don't you just rebuild it in reinforced concrete, and you don't need to do that? So the Imam answered him and said, and then what will bring the community together? It's really fascinating that for that Imam, he actually considered that the purpose of this maintenance exercise by the whole community is to bring the community together, not to maintain the mosque. So the maintenance became a vehicle or a means to an end. So the importance of bringing the community together and to working together to maintain their mosque, and therefore they cherish it, they care for it, is really how it works. So it's and this is why it's very important for us as professionals to really to pay attention to the communities, but also for the community, they need the professional knowledge and expertise. And probably us as professionals, we need to keep in mind the interest of future generations. So, as in the case of some of the buildings that were rebuilt both in Jordan and in Algeria in these two presentations with non-authentic materials, that was because the community wanted the function and the meaning. With the right support from the professional, they can achieve that, but with a more respect for the heritage value of the building, so that the future generations actually have this heritage also, and can actually get this message that had been inherited from many generations. So I think with earthen buildings, it's very important to deal with them as part and parcel of the community, of the environment, and to pay attention to the intangible aspects of the heritage of them as heritage resources. I should stop here. I think Olufemi is giving me a hint that I reached the time. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Hosham, for that wonderful share from your wealth of experience. We really appreciate your time and effort to join us today. And I will encourage the two presenters, Duan and Tiani. Tiani, I need to on your video because I have one question each for you that I've harvested for you today. And I quite appreciate your effort to attend to some of the questions on the Q&A box. Duan, you can on your video. The first question goes to Tiani. Okay, let me start with Duan first. To Dua, it says that I want to ask about the reaction to the change of use of the netting architecture within the community when some of those buildings were converted to another purposes. Were the community members receptive to that change of use, or how did they react to it?
Again, please.
The question is about when, you made mention of some of the case studies. What is the reaction of the community to the change of use of some of those case studies as you mentioned?
Maybe you meant the case of Sheikh Khalil Mosque?
Yes.
They cannot reuse it again as a mosque because there was no enough financial fund to go through the conservation process, to make sure that everything is okay to reuse it again. That's why.
But how did the community, did they accept that change of use, or they tried to?
They try their best to preserve such monuments, but they cannot reuse it as a mosque.
Thank you very much. The second question goes to Tiani. Tiani, this question is saying that what can you say about intergenerational transfer of Earthen architectural skills? You share us an image where they try to bring in the younger generation to know the kind of soil, know how they construct all this adobe and all that. And what is the policy looking like? Does it really encourage intergenerational transfer of those kind of skill? And is it in the policy that any younger generation that practice those skills will be incentivized and supported?
Okay, so for the first, it's two questions. I get the second one, but for the first one, what is about the transmission?
Yes, but it's intergenerational transfer to encourage the younger generation to learn those skills from the older ones for them to be able to.
Yeah, so in Algeria, as I mentioned in my presentation, we are suffering of skilled masons. So no one wants any more work with earth. They prefer new materials because it's more profitable. They will get more money from it, and it's quick. It's fast to realize it, and it's like we can find it everywhere in the market. So we can find concrete, steel, and everything. So the young generation, they are not interested in the transmission of earthen. I'm talking about my case of study. They are not interested in the transmission of this heritage, even if it is the heritage from their parents and for their grandparents. So we are now working in on another research project with other sociologists and anthropologists on how to find solutions on the sites, how to get this new generation that they come back to this trade, to this constructive know-how. So we are working on that. But also for the governments in my region, in the Sahara, they are not doing a lot of things. A lot of young people, they don't have work. And I think if they find some encouragement from the governments, maybe money or some workshops and formation, maybe they will work on this to get money for the first side. Then maybe they will like or they will love what they are doing in the future, and they will continue to do this. But no help, no support, nothing. All of them prefer to work on in administration or in service, in tourism, but no one wants to work in construction. So for the policy in Algeria now, just we are starting to make small moves. It's not so fast. They create this Center of Preservation of Earthen Architecture in the Gurera side in 2012. It's a recent center, and they are doing good work. They work with the communities, but they still working on their regions. They don't have like lots of, they have some workshops in universities or in some schools, but they don't really have a great rehabilitation operation in other sites. We have also in the Valley of Mzab, which is a UNESCO heritage. We have also another center which calls OPVM. So, but its mission is to protect this valley, this Mzab Valley. They don't really work on other sites. So this is it. I hope that this might will change in the future.
Thank you very much. To Osham, I want to bring you to this conversation. Based on your experience, how can you advise, especially governments in Africa and Arab region, how they can leverage Earthen architecture and as well as heritage on the broader view to really address the scourge of unemployment that is really ravaging lots of communities in these two regions?
Thank you, Olufemi. This is a very important question. And yes, I really believe, as the Tenhinan had been, confirming, that actually the governments really need to need more, if not, more maybe than the communities of raising awareness for the decision makers, because I do believe that there is a colonial legacy that we are not aware of, because in colonial periods, very often, the governments were interested more in the ancient monuments, grand monuments, marble, stone, granite, and really fascinating, huge, important buildings, single buildings. But the move at the time, that was in 19th century, maybe to early 20th century. Today, the conservation movement and theory and philosophy moved on, and now we include in the vernacular the mud buildings. So this kind of development of thought is very important to actually critique the philosophy and theory that is the basis of legislation, of the institutional structure and policies. And this is why, for example, in the case of Egypt, for example, the only way that you protect earthen settlement like Siwa, for example, that appears in Tenhinan's research, is by claiming it as archaeological site, which meant that no water, no sewage, no electricity goes in, which meant that the community left the settlement because they cannot live there. So because there is the legislation is to protect the archaeology, not the living heritage. So the governments need to really critique and update their premise of what is heritage. Heritage is not only antiquities, and the heritage, so much of it is living, which means that communities have to be involved. All stakeholders need to be involved. So I think that's really the main advice I would say.
Thank you very much. Two last question. One just came in to add to it and making it to Tiani, Don, and especially someone is asking if you have a link to a database or a great references that can be used for some of these issues that we are talking about. Please, if you have links that you can share, put it in the question and answer to as response to that question. And to
about Algerian Earthen heritage?
Yes, if you have a link to a database, a referencing
material. We are working
material.
on that. So
Okay.
now the second part of my research is to create this database. So we're still working on it.
Okay. Please, when it's done, keep us in the loop, and because a lot of researchers, even myself, will surely be interested in those kind of database.
Right.
And to Dr. Osham, someone's asked that you mentioned that some buildings most of the time resemble higher meanings, not just materials, as per the locals in the area. Could you suggest readings or books or case study to look into about the matters like the Janneh Mosque and so on?
Thank you. This is, there is a great body of architecture, of literature on vernacular architecture that is really so much of it, as I mentioned, is actually earthen buildings, such as the Janneh Great Mosque. And I would say that maybe the most important is the writings of Paul Oliver. And actually, Paul Oliver has left a wonderful archive, wonderful resources that are kept in the Oxford Brookes University. So anybody who is in the UK and wishes to really to examine some material, that's really a huge wealth. But also to check the the archive of ICOMOS, where the International Committee on Earthen Architecture are actually, as I know from my colleagues, are proactively collecting a huge corpus of works on earthen buildings, and including, of course, community involvement. So much of that will be on the ICOMOS archive. And finally, I would like to invite any professionals, particularly from Africa and the Middle East, if you are not a member of ICOMOS and you are a conservation or heritage professional, I encourage you to join ICOMOS, because it's a wonderful place for networking, but also for a lot of resources.
Thank you very much for that. This is bringing it to the last phase of our presentation today. Tiana, you want to say something?
Yes, please. She's asking about books. She's asking about the books on Janneh mosques and about like the Masons. I can recommend like very important books. It's The Masons of Janneh, written by Trevor Marchand. Donc, it's a very important reference. So this is it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Tiani, can you type in that into the question and answers, and for people to know how to spell it out? And someone has posted about the Crete archive. That is a very nice database as well. That is very rich for earthen architecture. I'd like to appreciate everyone for this for your participation in today's webinar. This is the second one, and the third one will be coming up in January. Details of it will be shared very soon. And also, as a network, we'll be working out on the report, on the research report for this, for the first half of the webinar series. Kindly look up to that. We'll be happy to share it with all the participants when we finish the report, because we believe that we need to capture this knowledge in a simple way to make it available to the whole wide world. I appreciate your participation today, and we look forward to having you again for the next insertion in ICOM webinar series, as well as the next one for our network. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day to everyone.